Hello everybody, this is going to be the first of a series of tutorials to learn rhinoceros 3D modeling CAD software. So first of all, what we're going to do is to open rhinoceros. This software is very useful for different types of modeling in CAD software. It's very fast, it's very versatile. It also is very compatible with lots of different plugins and devices, which makes it ideal for digital fabrication. What is digital fabrication? In that case, it will be fabricating with laser cutters, 3D printers, and so on. So we're going to start our new model. In this new model, the most important thing at the beginning is to understand that in our preferences or in our if I find it fast here in our file settings we should be working in millimeters. We will always work in millimeters as a unit. We can change this unit in the future, but for us now the most important thing is that we will work in millimeters, because all the objects that we are going to think of in the future are going to be in millimeters, as it will be easier to fabricate later on. Okay, so first we open Rhino and we will make it large. Here we have the main view of Rhino. First of all, we have 4 different views: the perspective one, top view, front view, and right view. To navigate on the perspective view, right clicking in the mouse will allow me to orbit. If I do a left click, it's for selection. If you can see, if I do the right click, so the left click from left to right, you will see like a complete square, not segmented. But if I do the opposite, it will be segmented. This will allow us to select objects in the future in a different way, and I will explain it in the future. In case of the bottom, other 3 views, let's say right, front, and top, if I right click, it will allow me to pan, you can see here, and left click is also the selection tool. If I use the mouse wheel, I can go back and forth in zooming. Okay, so in our left we will have where we have the main tools that we'll be using to model in this CAD software. We have the selection, point, polyline, curve, circle, and so on. Bottom here we have what is called the OSNAP. That will allow me to select objects and grabbing another object. For example, I'm gonna do this very quick. Have this line over here. I'm gonna draw a polyline, and here I have selected end, point, midpoint, center, intersection, and so on. Depends on what I want to do. So if I want to draw another polyline from the midpoint of this line, I can go here, bring my mouse close by, and you will see that it will snap to the midpoint of this line. It will also work in this line and that line. It can also do it in the endpoint, you see. So if it snaps there, I understand that the next line I'm making, it will start at the end of the previous line, as well as the midpoint. So that is the OSNAP is useful for that. For different, I can also use the near option, point option to select a point. From, if I come by, it will snap to the point. For now, okay, and up here we have different other options that are shortcuts that will allow us to work better and easier. Grid snap makes the that all the objects, all the movement, and all the placements of my polylines, circles, and objects in general to be added, to be snapping to the grid. You see now that it's not snapping to the grid, and each one of these squares is 1 millimeter. So if I place grid snap here, you see that it always locks into the grid. It's useful because when I'm doing something special, I want it to always be in millimeters. I don't want to have 1.0336, for example. So you see, if I do here to here, I have a 10 millimeter line. But if I unlock grid snap and I do from by the eye from here to here, the line won't be as much. It won't be this a specific millimeter line. It will be with a fraction of a millimeter as well. So grid snap is very useful in that case. Ortho or orthogonal stands for orthogonal actually, and what it does is that all the lines will always make them 90 degrees an angle. Was forced to be 90 degrees. If I'm selected, you can see that I can move freely. A shortcut for this is the Shift key. If I press Shift without releasing it, you will see that it's always 90 degrees. If I release it, it moves freely. Planar, we won't look at it right now, but what it does is that all objects are going to stay planar to one construction plane. Smart track is very useful when I'm trying to find an intersection of two different objects, or intersection within an object. For example, if I have here I draw a polyline, and here I draw another polyline or a line, and I want to draw a polyline in the intersection between this midpoint and this midpoint, what I can do is go over here and it will select the points that are crossing these two temporal points. The same as if I do it again, I place my mouse a little bit, like a few seconds over there, it will turn white. A few seconds over here, it will turn white, and it will show me, okay, this line is orthogonal to that point, this line is orthogonal to that point. And it will allow me, for example, to put a point there that is at the same level as this one. So I can go there, for example, and I can go there, for example. The gumball is very important, and if you don't have it selected, I always leave it selected. That is what allows me to move objects from part to part. So for example, if I don't have the gumball selected or the gumball activated, if I select this circle, it won't show me any way to move it by myself. If I press the gumball, you will see that this will appear. So what we see here is 3 arrows, different colors, some squares at the end, and some arcs. The arrows are for moving from axis by axis. You can see this green and red square over here is to move it in the y and x axis, and this one over here, the blue and green, for example, will move it in the z and y axis. The arcs are useful for rotating, so I can rotate the circle. It won't look like if rotating, but if I do a square, for example, I can rotate it over here. You see, the same as in the other axis and in the green axis. The squares at the end are for scaling. So if I press and move the red square, it will scale in the x-axis, and so with the y-axis. If I move this one and I press shift, it will move in the same it has a word, uniform. But if I move this one a little bit, the other one will always move uniformly to the scaling of the other side. Okay, so now that we have that covered with the gamble history, we're not gonna touch that now. This is the same as the menu we see down here in the left. That is OSNAP, and well, actually, this we can leave it like that. Then we have in our right corner up here, you have the layers. What are good layers about? It's when I have many objects, it's good for me to put those objects in different layers to have it more organized, and that way I can also hide them, and show them or lock them, change the color and properties also. So, for example, if I have a circle here and I make another circle here, I can choose one until here, go to the layers, right click, move object to this layer. What this will do is move this circle to the other layer. You will see that it will turn red. If I don't like red and I want to use another color, I can always change the color by pressing the color and moving to a color that I wish to have. Down here we can see some properties as well as layers, or what kind of objects are we selecting, what kind of options do we have about that object. We can also put some materials on it, save some views in our work, during our work, construction planes, and what is very useful is the viewport settings, sorry, that we can, in this case we're using wireframe in all the views, but I always recommend to use um, a ghosted view in the perspective view, so we can always identify easier our objects. So I can either click on here and go and ghost it. You'll see that the object will change the way I'm seeing it. This is just for visualization. I can go to other, like shaded for example, so I don't no longer see the corners on the other side, but I can see how the light reflects on it. And we can go to render and other options. So right now in our perspective view, I always recommend to stay on ghosted. You can also change that option up right here, where right clicking in perspective and going here on ghosted. Okay, so in my 4 views, I can also select and stay in one view, make it larger for me to easier work in whatever I'm working on. So I can double click in perspective, for example, and it will open the whole window up here. The same if I go here to top, front, and right. Or I can go back, double click right, or select the 4 squares up here. Okay, so towards our first exercise, understanding how Rhino works. Okay, first of all, we're gonna try and draw a point. We're gonna have a grid snap selected, gumball selected, and we're gonna draw a point by selecting the single point here. So you can click once and will tell you point, location of the point object. So now I can write down where do I want the point to be placed, or I can place it by myself, or as default, if I write 0 and then enter, it will put the point in the middle, in the origin point. 0 stands for the origin point. So I can go again, instead of this time pressing here, I can write down point, and you will see that there's a lot of commands appearing in the screen. I press return or enter, then it will tell me the location of the point object. So this time, let's say I want to put it in the y-axis, 10 millimeters in the y-axis. So in this case, I have to think like a vector, 0, comma 10, comma 0. And you will see that the point will appear up here in the y-axis. You see, 10 millimeters in the y-axis. So let's try that again. To do that fast, you can press the spacebar as a fast repeat command, let's say. Press return as well, and sometimes the right click. Or in this case, I'm going to press the spacebar. So spacebars will allow me to restart the command I used before, and it will tell me where to put the point. This time I want to put it in the 10, 3, 9. Now this point is going to be suspended in space. So you can see here how the point was suspended in space. Okay, next. Line or polyline. So if you see this arrow down here, I can press for a moment, release, and you will see that I can change or select many different types of commands. If I select line, it will only do a line. If I select a polyline, it stands for many lines, and so on. You can choose a variety of options here. So in this case, I want to do a polyline. I want this polyline to be only placed in the XY axis, so it's better to draw it from the top view. It happens that I was working in the top view, but I suddenly change to the front view and start constructing from there, and then to the right view, you will see that the line is not actually flat. That's because I was working in many different viewpoints. So always when you want the line flat, you work with only one view. Let's say in this case, always using the top view. So I can select it from right to left by touching it a little bit. I will select it, or from left to right by grabbing it completely. Otherwise, it won't select. You can see there, I won't select. But if I grab it completely, let's say it will work. So this selection as well is very important. If I have many objects, in this case, I'm going to do many polylines. Remember, here, right click to finish command, spacebar to repeat the command, and so on. You will see that if I do the selection like this, but I don't select the whole line, it won't select anything. If I do like this, for example, you will see it will select only 2 lines of the 4, because I grabbed them completely. If I do from right to left with the dash line square, this dash square, it doesn't matter how, I only have to touch the line to select it. So in this case, I'm going to select the 4 of them just by touching it a little bit. So remember that when you're doing different selections. In this case, I want to select everything and delete it. Okay, we've done the point and we've done a line. We can also do a curve. Remember, there are different types of there are different ways to call these commands. You can call them with the mouse button, by clicking on in the object here, or by writing down curve, and then selecting start, and will tell me start of the curve, and I can start drawing. There are gonna be many options sometimes here that I can change, and that will allow me to modify the curve. For example, if I put the degree and 2, it should make it more square, or more, depends. Well, I don't see. If I select 1, you see it makes it a polyline. So there are different options for different types of commands we're going to work with. Okay, point, polyline, curve. Now we can start doing a circle. What does the circle need? The circle needs a circle center. So it will tell me which point. So I can place it by myself here, or I can tell him go to 0, which is my origin point. And then it will tell me which is the diameter of this circle. I can change it to radius by clicking in radius if I want. I can make it by circumference, or I can make it by area, and so on. So in this case, I always like to use diameter, and I will tell him that it is 30. 30 what? 30 millimeters. How do I confirm this? I could write down distance, select the first point of the distance, in this case this midpoint, using OSNAP, and midpoint over here, remember, and the endpoint of the circle, that is in the other side. See how it grabs? it is also grabbing the center point. This is because when I put the mouse near the edge of the circle, it will go to the center of the circle. So if that bothers me, I can deselect the center here option, and now you won't see the center going showing up. So endpoint, and now it's gonna tell me down here, a very important place, the command list I've used. So it's gonna tell me the distance is 30. So we are correct. The moment I created the circle, I told it to be 30, 30 in diameter. Next, what we're going to do is to make a polyline or a line starting from 0. In this case, I write down 0, start, and I push it forward, upward. You can see I'm moving freely, but I want this line to go directly in 90 degrees up. So in this case, I have to hold down Shift. You see now I'm stuck in 90 degrees. And I just click there and select it. Now I can continue making a line, or I can right click it and finish the command. Okay, so this is going to be a reference line for me. I'm going to build something from this line connecting to this circle. As I know this is a reference line and I don't want it to interfere with my work and I want to get confused, I can select this line, go to the right here in the layer options, right click and move object to this layer. What will happen is that line is going to turn green. And I can make this line go away by hiding it with the light bulb over here. You see it disappears, or I can lock it, so I cannot move it or select it. In this case, what I want to do is to make a polyline starting from this line and crossing this circle. Okay, so how do I know if this is what this polyline I want to make is touching this line? Well, I can go and select near here. What it does is it grabs a near object. You see, near. So for example, I can go here and say, okay, I want the line to start from here. I want it to go right, pressing Shift, 90-degree angle, right over there, and I'm going down here. You can choose if you want it wider or closer. And then I will right click to finish my command. Now you'll see that I have one polyline, a circle, and a reference line. This reference line, I won't use it anymore, so I can hide it. And go here in the light bulb and hide it. Now, what I want to make is a gear. So this line, what I need to do is to mirror it, so I can have a full teeth of this gear. So I can write down mirror. It will tell me which is where is the start of the plane of the mirror. Remember, this is a plane, so it will use the whole y-axis plane, YC in this case, plane, to mirror this object. You see, that is mirroring the object, and if I press Shift, it will lock it to a 90 degree angle, telling me that if I do it right here, it will be a perfect 90-degree copy, 180-degree copy. So now I have two polylines, and these two polylines I want them to be together. In this case, I have to join them by pressing here, join, or writing down join, and it will tell me down here two curves joining into one open curve. Why open? Because it's still open, and I have my line there. So now what I would like to do is to trim these pieces out. I don't need these pieces because I want to replicate these teeth all around the circle. So there are two ways. One way is by splitting these pieces, or by trimming, that is actually splitting and cutting at the same time, or splitting and deleting at the same time. So in the first case, let's try splitting. If I choose here, split, or I write down split. It will tell me which object to split. I want to split the circle. Then I press enter and it will tell me which is the cutting objects. I will select this polyline. Once I select the polyline, you will see that what will happen is that this circle was divided in two. And I can delete that part that I don't need. The other way will be by trimming. I'm going to show you by trimming how it is with this figure and how this line is actually touching this other one. It will allow me this line is going to tell the command that there is a point of intersection. So if I deselect everything with escape and I write down trim or select trim in the left menu, it will tell me select cutting objects. In this case, I will select all the objects. Then I will press return and then select objects to trim. In this case, I want this to trim out and this to trim out. Now I have a clean object, open circle and an open teeth in this case, 1 and 2. Okay, so next, what we would like to do is to copy this object all around this circle. In that case, that will be an array, but as it is a circle, it is a polar array. In that case, I will write down array polar. You will see that the list of commands will show me here array polar. I will press enter. So first, if I deselect everything, then I go and write down array polar. Will tell me which objects do you want to make an array with. I will select the teeth. I will go and press return or enter. It will tell me which is the center of the array. Now I need the center point of this circle because I'm doing the array around this circle. If I do select away from the center point of this circle, what will happen is that the array will consider this part or the place I selected as the center of the array. So these objects are gonna go around that center. For example, I'm gonna show you. And I press this is the center of the array. I'm gonna do 5 objects. Then I will press enter. Then it's gonna tell me which angle to fill. In default is 360. If I have, I don't know, 180, it's gonna fill 180 degrees with 5 objects. In this case, I want to do 5 objects in 360 degrees. So I don't move anything, I just press enter or I click here on done. You see that the center of the array was here and it's doing the array polar according to that center. So if I don't like that, I can just press escape and it will cancel the command. So let's try again. I select the teeth, which is the center of the array. I have selected my center option here. I go down, I go next to the border of the circle, and you will see that it will jump to center. So I will press center, then I have number of items, 5, enter, which is the angle to fill, 360, so enter, and you will see there I have 5 teeth around the circle. I can say, okay, I think I need more teeth because I have too much space. So I can put here in items, I can change that and press, for example, 7. And I'm gonna press here done, and you will see, oops, sorry, start the array again, number of items 7, done. Fill angle 360, done. Now you can see I have more objects here. If I put 8 and enter, it will move to 8 objects, and so on. If I am happy with what I have here, I just press enter and finish the command. Now again, I will go and trim because I don't need these parts. I want this curve to be clean like this over here. So I can select all the object and go to trim here or write down trim. Which object to trim? So then I can start trimming by clicking the parts I don't want to have. And done. Okay. So what will happen now is that I have many different polylines or curves as well. So if I select all of this, it's going to tell me down here I've selected 14 curves. So actually they are all separated. What I can do here, or what I like to do, is to have all those curves as one. So I can write down join in this case, or I can click here, and you will see that those 14 curves were joined into one closed curve. That's what I like. If I want to revert this command, what I can do is to explode it. So explode is the contrary of joining. So I can explode, and you will see that the object was exploded in 35 segments. Why more segments than before? Because now, if you remember, we have this polyline that were 2 segments plus this polyline and so on. So there are 35 segments. If I put join, 35 curves join into one closed curve. Perfect. That's what I like. Okay, so now that we have a curve sitting on the base plane here in XY plane, what I like to have is a surface from here. So what I can do now is to write down planar surface. SRF is short for surface. And what this command will do is will create a surface from a flat curve object. You see there in perspective view, I have ghosted visualization ghosted, so I can see the object. If I didn't have ghosted and I had wireframe, I wouldn't see very clearly the object. I will understand that there are some lines here, and if I click it, everything is selected. But it's easier to understand if I have it in a ghosted viewport or in shaded, for example. So let's say in ghosted. Now that I have my surface, I also have my curve. So remember, as for we would like to stay organized with our working space, I can select the curve, move it over here, and change the layer. And then I can hide it. Move object to this layer, and it will be hidden. So here I have my reference line and my old curve for this gear I want to make. So I will hide that. Now I have only this surface here. Okay, so there are many ways to make this a volumetric shape that has a depth. One way is to write down extrude surface in this case, and I can move the object up and down as I wish. I have these options over here. I can choose both sides. That means that if I move it upwards, it's also going to move downwards. And so, if I choose solid, it's going to make a solid object. Once I click on it, it will have a cap on both sides. And I can also delete the input if I want, or I can make this object touch another object, and so on. So in this case, I want a solid, and I will click here. And then I have this volumetric gear. The other way to do this is by also extruding this surface, extrude surface again. In case I didn't select solid, what I can do then is to cap it. You see, I have my object here that is open, let's say it's a surface, and I can write down cap for capping or closing, and it will cap the object. If I do it again, like extrude surface, And this time I'm going to put a number. I wanted to extrude 4 millimeters. Whoops. Do it again. So this time it's going to be 4 millimeters, and I'm going to place enter. Something is not working. What? 4 enter. And it wasn't solid, but I can cap it. Okay, so we've seen different how to create different objects, starting from a line, a point, curves, and so on. But there are also a lot of other commands that are very useful to create for creating round shapes or different borders, and we're gonna see them now. For example, so I'm gonna make many polylines. They're gonna be copy of each other. So I'm gonna make a polyline with a 10 millimeter length, the first segment. So you will see that it is restricted to that length. I'll press shift for orthogonal. I'm gonna write another line over here, just by hand. So I have this segment, and I can move it around. I can also, with a shortcut, copy this segment. By pressing Alt before moving, I can move this object, and you will see that plus sign in the mouse. That means that it's copying the object. So now I have two, and I can select both as well and copy those two again, and so on. So first we can see, I'm going to show you a command that is called fillet. It shows right on there, fillet. It's only for curves. It's going to tell me which is the first curve to fillet. I'm going to tell them this one. Which is the second one. It's going to tell them this one. You see there's a little curve now there instead of having a straight corner, but it's too small. So what I can do is go back, undo, or Command C, and start the command again, fillet. And the radius, I can change the radius here. I'm going to change it to, let's say, 7. And then I will select this part and this segment. And you will see that the curve is going to be larger this time. So, very similar to fillet is chamfer. Chamfer does the same as fillet, but instead of doing like a curve, what it will do is a flat, another segment. It's going to cut the first segment and the second one in a distance. So in this case, we have 1 millimeter distance from one line and 1 millimeter distance from the other line. So if I choose this one and this one, you will see it cut this. It created a new segment from the previous corner. So we're gonna change the distance here to 5 and 3. We can make it different sizes. And select this one and this one. You will see that it ate more from one segment than the other. And I can combine these two different commands. Let's say I did the chamfer, but I want this to be also round. Select this one and this one. You will see that it will be continuous and round. Those commands can be applied later for solids, but they have a different name. In that case, it's going to be fillet edge or chamfer edge that we're going to see later in a future exercise. Okay, what else is important to us to see? We can also create surfaces. Remember that clicking here for 1 second and clicking, releasing the mouse button, we can see all the options we have to make different types of surfaces. We can select a rectangular plane of 3 corners, or 3 points, 2 corners, etc. Or I can actually also write down rectangle. It will tell me different options. I have 3-point rectangle, a vertical, a center rectangle, a rounded rectangle, etc. So I just want to make a rectangle by hand, just make that there. I can also modify this rectangle, remember, by scaling the gumball. Here are the squares. Remember that if I press shift while scaling with one, it will be uniform scaling. Here I have this arc, will allow me to rotate this rectangle and the gumball to move it around. So I can see it in different views, move it upwards in the z-axis. You see that I won't see anything from the top because I'm in the top. I'm not seeing any. I'm only seeing one plane, while in the other planes I'm seeing how it moves from side to side, or upwards and downwards. The same will happen if I do it like that. Okay, so that's our first exercise for now. Remember, um, first of all, we do a circle from the 0, the specific radius. You can change the radius you want. We made a reference line from 0, enter, go ahead, over there. Then we made a teeth by touching the line, moving it downwards, over there, mirror. This is our center plane for mirroring. Joining those two, we join, then trimming, 1, 2, 3, okay, a polar from the center of the circle. I want, in this case, 3 objects, and then we trim again, and we join these circles, then we do a planar surface, and you can see the surface there. We can actually also do an extrusion from this curve. As we did extrude surface, we can do extrude curve and extrude the curve. So there are many different ways to do this. You will find out while you're working on that you might find something easier to do one way than the other. So that's it for now. Please practice, do some gears, and in the next exercise we're gonna see how to make a lamp.